Welcome back. Today, Hercule Poirot faces his most impossible case: murder on the Orient Express. 12 suspects, 1 victim. Stay till the end to see the shocking truth. 1 luxury train trapped in snow. 1 man murdered in his sleep, stabbed 12 times. No footprints, no escape, and 12 passengers with 12 secrets. By the end of this journey, you'll know the shocking truth. Sometimes justice is not what the law decides. Chapter 1. Snow, Train, and Me. I, Hercule Poirot, am a man of order. Order in thought, order in life, order in the curl of a mustache. When things are symmetrical, precise, and measured, the world feels safe. Without order, chaos slips in, and chaos is where murder thrives. And I, mon cher, know murder too well. It was with great satisfaction, therefore, that I boarded the Orient Express on that fateful winter evening. Imagine, if you will, the station hushed beneath a heavy quilt of snow, lamps glowing amber halos into the foggy night, and the sleek black train stretching like an elegant beast across the platform. Inside, the corridor gleamed with polished brass. The scent of leather seats, coal smoke, and expensive perfume mingled together. The rhythm of voices, French, English, Russian, American, drifted like snippets of a cosmopolitan play. I straightened my tie, aligned my suitcase with the compartment wall, and told myself, oui, order has come with me aboard this train. The passengers themselves fascinated me. My eyes catalogued them with the precision of a ledger clerk. A princess whose jewels glittered as if defying the snowstorm outside. A colonel, posture stiff with military correctness, his lips pressed in the way of men accustomed to command. A young Englishwoman, quiet, reserved, with eyes that measured everything yet revealed nothing. Miss Mary Debenham, I would learn. A count and countess, polished like ornaments from a Viennese ballroom. An American matron, Mrs. Hubbard, carrying her handbag like a battering ram, and her opinions like cannon fire. Each one distinctive, each one a thread in what my instincts whispered would become a very tangled web. I had barely begun my observations when a man approached me. Tall, broad, with a face carved from arrogance. His eyes were restless, flicking from side to side like a wolf sizing its prey. His name, he said, was Ratchet. He was wealthy, influential, a collector of art and antiques. His voice rasped with command as he leaned toward me. "Monsieur Poirot," he said, "I have enemies." "Many enemies. They want me dead. You must protect me," I studied him. The lips pressed too tightly, the restless hands, the eyes cold and unblinking. To employ me, Hercule Poirot, requires more than money. It requires sympathy. This man inspired none. "Non, monsieur," I said firmly, my mustaches twitching. "I refuse your case." "You are not a man I like." His face darkened. For a moment I thought he would strike me, but he merely gave a stiff nod and walked away, his expensive shoes tapping on the corridor floor. I watched him go. My little gray cells had already whispered the truth. Here is a man running not from one enemy, but from many. And when enemies are so numerous, destiny is always close behind. That night, the train rolled forward into the wilderness of Yugoslavia. Snow fell thicker, heavier, until it swallowed the windows in blinding white. The passengers retreated to their compartments. The corridor grew quiet. The Orient Express seemed suspended in time, a narrow capsule of warmth racing through an endless frozen desert. I lay in my berth, blanket tucked neatly, listening to the rhythm of the wheels. The smell of Turkish coffee lingered from a porter's passing tray. A woman laughed softly in the next carriage. The hiss of steam joined the whisper of wind. Slowly, sleep took me. But order never lasts, not for long. I awoke past midnight. A sound, a door slamming, a voice, male, irritated, calling for the conductor. Then the cry of a woman, sharp, frightened, cut short. Another voice soothed, "It is nothing." But it was not nothing. My watch read 12:37. The train had stopped. Outside, silence. Inside, footsteps in the corridor. Hesitant, secretive. Then all was still. I closed my eyes again, though my little gray cells did not. They recorded every sound, every absence, every fragment of disorder. A man who begged me for protection now quarreling with staff. A woman crying out in the night. A conductor's hurried footsteps. A train held captive by snow. Dawn arrived pale and cold. I shaved carefully, waxed my mustache to the exact degree of curl, and stepped into the corridor. The air was strained, passengers whispering nervously. The conductor approached, face drained of color. "Monsieur Poirot," he stammered, "please, you must come. There has been a tragedy." And so it began. Chapter 2. Voices in the Night expanded. The Orient Express had stopped. I woke because the silence was too loud. No rhythm of wheels, no steady clatter beneath my bed, only stillness, thick, suffocating, the kind that presses on your ears until you hear your own pulse. Snow had seized the train in its icy claws. And with captivity, always, comes disorder. At first, there was only quiet. Then, knock, 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 a sharp rapping on wood, followed by the muffled voice of the conductor. I sat upright, holding my breath. Another sound, higher this time, the startled cry of a woman, thin as a knife, cut off quickly. Then came a man's voice, calm, soothing. "Ce n'est rien? It is nothing." My mustaches bristled. Nothing? Ah, but always it is something. I checked my watch. 12:37. Curious, always curious. My mind recorded the time as carefully as one would pin a butterfly. The train, I realized, was utterly still. Beyond my window stretched only the endless white of the Balkans, snow piled high as walls. No intruder could come or go. The world itself was locked. Yet the night was restless. A bell rang for the conductor. A voice, angry, imperious, rose above the hush. Ratchet, I recognized the rasp. Only yesterday he had begged me for protection. Now he barked at staff like a tyrant who mistook fear for respect. I smiled thinly. Men who trust no one always end by suspecting everyone, even shadows. Sleep tugged at me again, but the little gray cells would not rest. They counted each disturbance, the slam of a door, the rattle of a latch, the shuffle of feet in the corridor. Somewhere a faint metallic clang, like a dropped tray, and then silence once more, heavy as snow itself. When dawn broke, it was pale and reluctant. My breath fogged the glass as I drew the curtain aside. Outside, drifts of white covered the landscape like a shroud. Inside, the train creaked with the weight of uneasy dreams. Passengers muttered in corridors, their voices hushed, as if afraid to disturb something lurking among us. I performed my morning ritual with care, shaving smooth, mustaches curled to perfection, tie knotted at precisely the right angle. Order, always order, even in the midst of disorder. Then I stepped into the corridor. The air was tense, brittle. A lady clutched her shawl too tightly. A gentleman's pipe trembled in his hand, though it was unlit. The conductor appeared, pale as parchment. His lips trembled, his hands wrung his cap. "Monsieur Poirot," he whispered urgently, "please, you must come. There has been an accident." Accident. Ah, the euphemism of the frightened. He led me not to the dining car, as I had expected for breakfast, but to compartment number 2. The door stood ajar, the curtain half drawn. At once I smelled it, faint cologne, stale smoke, and iron, the iron tang of blood. There, on the bed, lay Ratchet. But Ratchet was no longer Ratchet. His body was twisted, his pajamas soaked with dark patches. His face, once carved with arrogance, now sagged in slack horror, mouth open in a scream he had no time to finish. Across his chest and sides, wounds, so many wounds. I counted quickly, 12, some deep and precise, others shallow, tentative. Not the work of a single hand, unless that hand was possessed by many spirits at once. Dr. Constantine, a Greek passenger, bent over the body with professional detachment. He adjusted his spectacles, muttered, "He has been dead many hours. Some blows struck with great strength, others barely pricked." Curious, very curious, I leaned closer. The sheets were tangled, yes, but not as in a struggle. More like the bed had been rearranged afterward, too neat in places, too careless in others. I touched the window, locked. The door, forced only now, when we entered. The chamber was sealed. Impossible. But impossible things, they are the only things that interest Hercule Poirot. On the floor, a button from a uniform glinted dully. In the ashtray, a scrap of burnt paper, edges curled like black petals. On the chair, a lady's handkerchief embroidered with an H, and on the rug, a pipe cleaner. Such treasures for the collector of truth, yet too many, far too many. One clue convinces, 2 guides, 3 may puzzle, but 4 or 5? That is theater. Someone wished me confused. Someone wished to play games with Hercule Poirot. Ch-ch-ch. The conductor trembled. "Monsieur, but no one could leave the train. The snow, it is too deep." "Precisely," I said softly. "Therefore the murderer is still with us. He is here, perhaps sipping his morning coffee, perhaps already inventing his alibi." I straightened, pulling my coat close. Around me, the doctor, the conductor, the cold. But in my little gray cells, the theater had begun. The actors were assembled, the stage set, the curtain already raised. One of those polite passengers, princess, colonel, governess, countess, matron, had plunged a knife into this man, into Cassetti, as he had once been known. And I, Hercule Poirot, would discover which of them played executioner. Chapter 3. Ashes, Initials, and First Lies. Order first. Always order. I clear a small square of table, align the lamp so its light falls at a precise angle, and motion for the window to be opened a finger's width. The cold slides in like a knife. The smoke-scented air clears. On a porcelain saucer, I set the charred scrap we found in Ratchet's ashtray. It is stubborn, curled, flaking at a breath. Patience, Poirot. Even ash has a geometry. With tweezers, I coax the curls apart until a black lace of paper lies flat. A whisper of gray dust drifts across my cuff. The doctor fusses. The conductor holds his breath. I tilt the lamp. Letters appear like ghosts in the grain, brittle but legible enough if one knows how to squint at fate. Armster. I exhale slowly. Another sliver, teased, joins it. ONG. Armstrong. The name strikes the compartment like a quiet thunder. The doctor inhales. The conductor glances at the door as if the letters themselves might call for him. I need no more. In my head a child's room, a nurse's scream, newspapers like vultures, the Armstrong case, the stolen child, the ransom, the body found too late, and the man behind it, Cassetti, a civilized hyena with a taste for luxury and a talent for slipping the noose. Ratchet, I say softly, was not Ratchet. Of course he was not. My little gray cells recognized the smell on him, fear disguised as arrogance. He was Cassetti, and somebody on this train remembered Daisy Armstrong. I let the ash fall back into its dish. The doctor murmurs a prayer beneath his breath. The conductor, poor man, looks as if he has swallowed a button. Speaking of buttons, I say, and glance at the floor where the uniform button was found. Tell me, my friend, have any of your staff misplaced a decoration? Never, monsieur, he says, with the injured dignity of a man accused of misplacing his honor. Our uniforms are checked. Twice. Just so. A planted clue then. Imagine! Someone brought a handful of contradictions and scattered them like seeds, hoping a forest of confusion would grow. Alas, they have planted them in Hercule Poirot's garden, where weeds are trimmed daily. I gather the rest. The pipe cleaner. Our victim smoked cigars only. The handkerchief embroidered with an H. A letter that points to everyone and to no one. The locked window, as useful as a locked door if you only wish to suggest an exit. The uneven wounds, a clumsy left hand, a decisive right, a trembling wrist. One killer who is himself many, or many who pretend to be one. Either way, symmetry lurks. Bring me his valet, I tell the conductor, and the secretary. One at a time. Ah, and coffee. It is a morning for truth which needs caffeine. Interview the first. Hector McQueen, secretary. He enters briskly, young, American, keen eyes behind spectacles, grief and anger tangled in his jaw. I indicate the seat opposite me. He sits. He does not look at the bed. You were Mr. Ratchet's secretary, I begin. Yes, he says, and then hastily, yesterday morning I was. Not now. He swallows. God. You arranged his letters, his appointments, his enemies? He blinks. His enemies? Come, monsieur, men who've stolen children do not lack enemies. I watch the word land. He stiffens, snatches at it. You knew? He breathes. Now I do. Cassetti, I say, and the name makes him flinch as if struck. Did you? He hesitates, then nods. I didn't know when I took the job. Found out later. I hated him for it. But a man needs a living, and he paid. He always paid. Hate is an interesting employer, I say. It keeps long hours. His eyes flash. Listen, I'd have turned him in if I could. But he had papers, lawyers, men. He wanted me to hire extra protection for this trip. Said he'd been threatened with letters, anonymous. He was scared to death under all that tough talk. Ah, the letters, I murmur. You saw them? Some. Ransom note-style cuttings. He burned most. So I see, I say, glancing at the ash. Where were you last night? In my compartment. Writing up notes. The conductor can confirm. I went to bed around 12:30. Slept like a log. He spreads his hands. I couldn't. Look, Monsieur Poirot, I know what he did. The Armstrong child. His voice dries out. You were fond of someone in that household? I ask, too gently, and watch the flicker. A connection is a light that betrays itself. He stands abruptly. I'm not the only American on this train, he says tightly, and I'm not the only person who knows Cassetti's history. Indeed, I say, cheerful as a cat. Send in the valet, if you please. He leaves, anger trailing like a scarf. Good. Anger is a color. It will help me sort the palette. Interview the second, Edward Masterman, valet. He is as English as the word proper. Pale, precise, folded into himself with the neatness of a shirt in a drawer. He stands until I wave him to sit. Even seated, he remains vertical. You served, mister? Ratchet, Cassetti. I served the gentleman who paid my wages, sir, he replies without inflection. His eyes avoid the bed with professional dignity. It is not my place to know my employer's history. But one hears things even in the most obedient of ears, I say. He had enemies? Most men of money have, sir. He slept poorly, kept his door locked, rang the bell often, complained of indigestion. And you? Where were you last night? In my compartment. I was indisposed. He coughs delicately. A touch of the stomach. I took a powder and read until I fell asleep. What did you read? A Dickens, sir. He coughs again as if ashamed of literature. His cuffs are immaculate, his nails unremarkable, his shoes quietly polished. His answers are smooth as starch. He neither hates nor loves aloud, but one does not need to shout to feel. Did your master fear anyone in particular? He feared everyone in general, Masterman says, with a dryness that could crack. He carried a pistol. Which we have not found, I say. No, sir. And you did not like him? A pause. No, sir, he says, as if confessing to a preference for weak tea. I did not. Mercy. I let him go. He bows like a folded letter. The snow presses harder against the window. The train creaks like an old man's bones. The doctor returns, murmuring about wounds and timelines. Yes, yes, some blows fierce, some hesitant. Between 12:30 and 2 o'clock. The body cooled accordingly. My little gray cells have sketched the clock already. A commotion in the corridor. The door flies inward on a gust of perfume and indignation. Mrs. Hubbard arrives, hat askew, handbag clutched like a weapon, voice honed to a theatrical edge. I simply must speak, she declares. I had a man in my compartment last night. A man in the dead of night. Imagine I stand. Madame, the dead of night has given us many gifts. Please, be seated. She perches, affronted dignity radiating like a radiator on full. I said to the conductor, There's a man in my room. But do they listen? Number. Men never listen when a woman is in mortal peril. She glares at the conductor, who appears ready to leap from the train into the snow. What time? I ask. Around, well, after midnight, certainly. I woke up. I saw a figure pass between me and the door, and I knew that brute had come to kill me next. I rang the bell. I told the conductor, and he said it was all a dream. A dream. Then this morning I find this. She rummages in the handbag, produces a small object with triumph. A conductor's button. In my room. Proof. The conductor makes a strangled sound. Madame, our uniforms. Then someone borrowed yours, she says crisply. Or someone is a bad conductor. In either case, I insist on justice. Madame, I say, accepting the button with a bow, you will have justice. Or something extremely symmetrical. She softens. Oh, Monsieur Poirot, you're so tidy. I trust tidy men. She leans in, conspiratorial. And another thing, I heard a woman's voice last night. Foreign, saying it was nothing. Well, it is something. A murder. Indeed, I say. You have been most helpful. She departs like a small storm, leaving the air tasting faintly of violets and outrage. So, a midnight guest, a helpful button, a voice that soothes. Either we are being herded like sheep toward a false pen, or this is the clumsiest murderer who ever packed a suitcase. My bet is on the shepherd. I send for the princess, for the count and countess, for Colonel Arbuthnot, for Miss Mary Debenham. One by one they will sit, they will speak, and they will reveal themselves in the choice of a pronoun, in the tremor of a lash, in the politeness that arrives half a second late. Before that, I request a practical thing. All passports, I tell the conductor, collect them. Allergies, occupations, relationships, previous addresses, copy everything, and have the staff search for a scarlet kimono. He blinks. A kimono, monsieur? Yes, I say lightly, because it would be theatrical, and therefore someone will have one, and because I have not yet had my second coffee, and because somewhere in the corner of my eye a flash of red walked the corridor of my memory at 12:37. Did I see it? Or did the night dress itself to tease me? Either way, I will ask. I am alone for a moment. I sit. The ash has cooled. The room smells of cologne and iron and old panic. I place the handkerchief, the dainty white thing, on the table. The letter H looks up at me with prim innocence. H for who? I murmur. H for Hubbard. H for Hildegard Schmidt. H for a hotel. H for a husband. H for a lie. Outside, the snow lightens as if the sky has remembered the idea of sun. Inside, the Orient Express remains a courtroom on rails. The jury is present, the judge is ready, the accused is many. I smooth my mustaches, restoring their exact symmetry. Focus, Poirot. Do not chase the props, chase the pattern. I ring the bell. Send in Miss Debenham, I say. Let us begin the parade. Hook. In 5 minutes, a calm English voice will tell me, we must be careful, and I will finally know why the night sounded like a rehearsal. Chapter 4. The Parade of Suspects. I have always believed, mon ami, that people are like puzzles. They arrive in front of you with edges smoothed, colors bright. But the picture itself, that must be assembled. To assemble requires patience, detail, and the little gray cells. So, one by one, I summon them to the dining car, my courtroom on wheels. The room was warm with the hiss of steam heaters. Snow pressed at the windows like the hands of ghosts. Coffee steamed, silver rattled faintly with the vibration of the stalled train. I sat at the head of the long table, notebook before me, mustaches arranged like 2 sharp question marks. Order was restored. Now let us see who dares to disturb it. First to appear, Miss Mary Debenham, English, young, the kind of woman who carries discipline in her spine. She walked in, back straight, chin level, as if she were teaching a class invisible to me. Mademoiselle, I greeted her. She inclined her head, calm, almost too calm. I asked simple questions, where she had been, what she had heard. Her answers came swift, rehearsed, as though she had practiced them while brushing her hair that morning. I was in my compartment. I retired early. I heard nothing. Her eyes did not flicker once, but when I said softly, "You are a governess, yes? You keep order?" Her lips trembled, barely. "We must all be careful," she replied. Such a curious phrase, we? We, not I. We. The pronoun, it betrays her. She guards not only herself, but someone else. Next, Colonel Arbuthnot, a soldier of the Empire. He carried himself like a parade ground, boots planted firmly, voice clipped. "I was smoking with McQueen," he said. After that, I retired, slept soundly. He answered each question with military precision, but when I mentioned Miss Debenham, his eyelids twitched. "She is a lady," he said shortly. I will not have her name dragged into this. Such loyalty, such chivalry, it reveals affection. Soldiers guard their country, this one guards a governess. Intriguing. Then Princess Dragomirov, an old Russian lady, her body stooped like an ancient tree, her eyes glittering like sharp jewels. She sank into her chair with the dignity of a queen on a throne. "I am old, Monsieur Poirot," she said, "too old to stab men in the night. Besides, my maid will tell you I did not move." Her voice cracked with age, but her will was iron. She spoke of the Armstrong family as one might speak of royalty fallen into tragedy. She knows them, I thought. She has touched that sorrow with her own hand. Age does not free one from loyalty. The Count and Countess Andrenyi. He, tall, polished, his uniform perfect even in leisure. She, young, fragile as porcelain, eyes downcast. They spoke little, as though rehearsed in silence. The Count bristled when I asked questions, protecting his wife with curt replies. The Countess's fingers trembled on her handkerchief, though her lips never opened. Love, when too fierce, hides something. A husband who answers for his wife, that is not protection, it is concealment. Then came Mrs. Hubbard. Ah, she entered like a storm in fur. Handbag clutched, voice raised, cheeks flushed. "Monsieur Poirot," she boomed, "I told the conductor last night there was a man in my compartment." A man, and nobody believed me. Now look, murder. She rummaged in her bag and produced a button with triumph. "I found this. In my room. Proof, I tell you. Proof." Her eyes flashed with righteous American fury. I bowed politely. "Merci, madame. You have a flair for theater, but perhaps the stage is larger than you know." She huffed, satisfied, like a queen whose evidence had crowned her. One by one, the others paraded through. The Secretary McQueen with nervous zeal, the valet masterman with stiff propriety, the Swedish missionary, the Italian with restless hands, the German maid who clutched her apron. Each carried their alibis like fragile glass, polished and ready to be admired. Each face spoke two truths, the words from their mouths and the flickers they tried to hide. By the end of the afternoon, my notebook was a gallery of contradictions. 12 stab wounds, 12 passengers, clues that pointed everywhere and nowhere. A pipe cleaner for a man who smoked cigars, a handkerchief with the initial H, a uniform button too easily lost, a red kimono glimpsed in the corridor. Such chaos, too perfect to be chance. Someone has staged a play, and I, Hercule Poirot, am the critic invited to its premiere. As the last witness departed, the snow outside thickened once more, pressing against the glass with pale hands. The dining car lay empty, but for me, the doctor, and the echoes of voices still hanging in the air. I tapped my pen against the notebook. The pattern was forming, not yet clear, but there. "Patience," I murmured. "The little gray cells, they have begun their dance." And then I smiled, for when lies grow too perfect, they always hide the truth. Chapter 5. Clues like smoke. It is one thing to question men and women, to weigh their alibis and examine the tremors in their voices. But it is another thing, far more subtle, to question the objects they leave behind. For objects, mon ami, they do not lie. They may be placed, planted, twisted into deception, but even then they tell a truth, the truth of what the liar wishes me to believe, and that, too, is most instructive. I returned to Ratchet's compartment. The corpse had been removed, but the atmosphere of death lingered, clinging like stale cigar smoke. The doctor had tidied, yet I asked him to leave certain things untouched. I wanted to look again with the freshness of morning and the order of a rested mind. First, the handkerchief, white, of fine linen, delicately embroidered with a single initial, H, not in plain block letters, no. The flourish was elegant, foreign, with the bar of the letter curling like a dancer's foot. H, I murmured, holding it to the light. H for Hubbard, perhaps? Or for Hildegard, the German maid? Or even for the Princess Dragomirov, who might have used a Cyrillic alphabet where H is N? Non, non, let us not yet jump. The handkerchief whispers, but it does not shout. Next, the pipe cleaner. A trivial thing, yes? But Ratchet smoked only cigars. I knew this. The ash told me so, thick and stubby. Therefore the pipe cleaner belonged not to him, but to someone else. Colonel Arbuthnot smokes a pipe. Ah, but would such a careful soldier drop his tool in the chamber of a murdered man? Unless, of course, someone wished me to think so. A false note in a symphony, played loudly so one cannot miss it. On the floor gleamed the uniform button, brass, stamped with the insignia of the wagon-lit company. The conductor swore all his staff were intact. Then whose button was this? A phantom conductor moving at midnight? A disguise donned by some passenger? Again, the clue was too perfect, too easy. When you arrange the evidence too neatly, mes amis, you insult Hercule Poirot. But the most curious object was not found by me. It was brought by Mrs. Hubbard, triumphant as Caesar returning from Gaul. She flung open her enormous handbag and declared, "Monsieur Poirot, I found this in my sponge bag." And there, wrapped in a little paper, lay a dagger. Slim, jeweled at the hilt, its blade was stained dark with blood. The doctor confirmed at once. It could be the weapon that ended Ratchet's life. Yet what a strange hiding place, in Mrs. Hubbard's bag, where any search would uncover it. She swore with indignation that she had never seen it before. "Somebody planted it! Someone wanted to make me look guilty," she cried. Tears welled in her eyes, though her voice rang with theater. And here, I thought, is a woman who can make truth and fiction march in step. A useful talent, or a dangerous one? Later, as the staff searched the compartments for more, a porter came to me pale and trembling. "Monsieur Poirot, we have found a kimono." He held it up. Scarlet silk, embroidered with dragons, the kind of garment one expects in a masquerade, not in a snowbound train. "It was in your luggage, monsieur," he stammered. "Ah!" I exclaimed, though inside my little gray cells clapped their hands in amusement. "In my luggage? Quelle audace! Someone wished to taunt me, Hercule Poirot, planting a red garment as if to say, 'Catch me if you can.' I examined it, soft, perfumed faintly with jasmine, cut for a woman's frame. Several passengers could wear it, but none had admitted to owning it. A phantom lady in red glimpsed in the corridor last night. Was she real, or only a costume borrowed by another? Piece by piece, the clues assembled themselves into a kaleidoscope. Too many, far too many. A dagger in a sponge bag, a button in a lady's room, a kimono in my own suitcase, a handkerchief embroidered H, a pipe cleaner belonging to a man who smokes cigars. These are not the whispers of evidence. They are the loud cries of stage props. Someone, or many someones, has dressed the scene like a pantomime. And yet, beneath the farce, the pattern shimmers. I closed my notebook. The murderer, mes amis, is an artist, a poor one perhaps, but ambitious. He creates confusion not by accident, but by design, and he thinks Hercule Poirot will stumble in the snow of contradictions. I smiled, smoothing my mustaches into perfect symmetry. But order always will have the last word. Chapter 6. Faces Behind the Name. I sat in my compartment, the clues spread before me like actors frozen on a stage. The dagger, the handkerchief, the pipe cleaner, the scarlet kimono, each one loud, insistent, a voice shouting, "Look at me!" Yet when many voices shout at once, it is not clarity that emerges, it is noise. And so I turned instead to the smallest whisper, the charred scrap of paper, the one word that had survived the flames. Armstrong. Even written half-burnt, the name carried weight, as if dipped in tragedy. I closed my eyes and saw it again. The American headlines, the child Daisy Armstrong torn from her crib. The ransom money paid, yet the child found lifeless. A family destroyed. Colonel Armstrong driven to his death. His wife, heavy with child, perishing in grief. Loyal servants scattered, ruined, some ending themselves in despair. And the man responsible? Cassetti. Ratchet. The very corpse now cooling in the baggage car. So Poirot, you see? Murder has memory. It does not forget. It lingers in the blood of those who suffer, and sometimes, yes, sometimes, it finds a way to avenge itself. I turned back to the faces in my notebook. Mrs. Hubbard with her theatrical indignation, Mary Debenham with her calm mask, Arbuthnot with his soldier's loyalty, Princess Dragomirov with her ancient bitterness, the Countess with her trembling hands. Could it be, none, it must be, that one or more of them were connected to the Armstrong tragedy? The Princess was first to break. Summoned again, she regarded me with eyes sharp as ice. "The Armstrongs," she said slowly, "were friends of my youth. Their child's death was a blow to all who loved them." Her voice wavered, but her will did not. "I am old, Monsieur Poirot. Too old for stabbing, but if I were young, perhaps—" She let the words hang, brittle as frost. Ah, but her maid, Hildegard Schmidt, looked at the floor when the name Armstrong was spoken. A flush crept up her neck. She had served a lady once, yes, a lady with a child. She spoke little, but her silence confessed enough. Then there was the Countess. She sat beside her husband, who answered for her with brusque devotion. But when I looked directly into her eyes and murmured, "Mademoiselle Armstrong?" she flinched, her lips parting before she remembered to press them closed. Her husband's hand tightened on hers like a shackle. Too fierce a protection always reveals what it hides. She was related to the Armstrongs, of that my little gray cells were certain. Mary Debenham, too, betrayed herself, not with words, but with the stillness of her face. The moment Armstrong was mentioned, her eyes shuddered, too calm, too rehearsed. The calm of a governess, yes, but also the calm of one who has practiced grief until it leaves no trace. Piece by piece, the pattern emerged. They were not strangers, these passengers. They were bound by a single name, a single tragedy, like beads strung on a necklace, each different in shape and color, yet all held by one thread, Armstrong. But could all of them be guilty? None. That was madness. Yet the wounds on the body, some deep, some shallow, some angry, some hesitant. More than one hand, perhaps more than two. A jury of blades. I looked down at the dagger lying across the table, its jeweled hilt catching the weak winter light. 12 blows, 12 passengers in this coach. Coincidence? Poirot does not believe in coincidence. Later that afternoon, I took coffee with Dr. Constantine. His spectacles gleamed as he repeated his findings. The blows were delivered by different hands, I am sure of it. At least two, perhaps more. The depth, the angle, they are inconsistent. Exactly, I replied. A clumsy killer leaves chaos. But this is not clumsy. It is art. Or rather, justice painted as art outside, the snow pressed harder against the glass. The train was still trapped, the world reduced to this corridor, these compartments, these faces. Inside, I felt the weight of eyes upon me, the passengers whispering, watching, wondering. Did they fear me? Or did they fear that the truth was already circling, closing like a noose? I smoothed my mustaches, ensuring each hair stood in perfect symmetry. Order, always order. It is my compass. So, I murmured to myself, we have 12 wounds, 12 suspects, and one dead man whose past has caught him at last. The question, mes amis, is not who killed Ratchet. The question is, who among you has not? Chapter 7. 2 Roads, 2 Destinies. I sat in the dining car long after the passengers had returned to their compartments. The tables were cleared, the silver put away, but I remained, tapping a teaspoon gently against porcelain. Outside, the snow wrapped the train like a tomb. Inside, silence thickened. My little gray cells, however, were most awake. They whispered, they tugged, they presented to me not one solution but two neat roads, each leading to a very different truth. The first road was simple. A man dressed in a conductor's uniform, the missing button proved as much, entered Ratchet's compartment during the night. He stabbed him once, twice, again and again. He escaped through the door, locked it behind him, and vanished into the night. The red kimono glimpsed in the corridor, a distraction. The handkerchief with its delicate H, carelessly dropped. The pipe cleaner, left behind by accident. In this version, we had an outsider killer, someone unknown, clever enough to disguise himself, strong enough to slip away. It was an elegant road, n'est-ce pas? Too elegant, because it asked me to believe in ghosts. Outside the train lay walls of snow higher than a man's shoulders. No footprints, no path, no possibility of flight. Could a stranger leap into such a prison and escape unseen? Non, I do not believe in phantoms. So the second road remained, and it was far more troubling. The second road was collective. I thought of the wounds on Ratchet's body, 12 stabs, some vicious, driven by rage, some hesitant, drawn by trembling hands. The doctor swore to it. More than one person, more than one style. A jury of blades delivering a verdict not in words, but in wounds. And the clues, the clues. Too many, scattered like bright confetti after a parade. The dagger in the sponge bag, the button in Mrs. Hubbard's room, the scarlet kimono in my luggage, the pipe cleaner, the handkerchief, the burnt paper, each one pointing to someone different, each one too obvious. One does not plant so many red herrings unless one wishes Hercule Poirot to drown in them. I leaned back in my chair, mustaches twitching. A memory returned. The Armstrong case, a family torn apart, lives ruined. How many were touched by that tragedy? Servants, friends, relatives. How many might have sworn to avenge that child? Could it be all of them? 12 stab wounds, 12 passengers. The symmetry was too beautiful. And symmetry, you understand, is my gospel. Where symmetry exists, truth often hides beneath. Later, I tested my thoughts aloud to Doctor, Constantine and Monsieur Bouc, the director of the railway. Bouc paced nervously, wringing his hands. But Poirot, surely the first theory is correct. An intruder disguised as a conductor. It is neat. It is simple. Neat, yes. Simple, yes. True? None. I spread my hands. Why so many clues? Why so many contradictions? It is a child's trick, mon cher. Throw toys on the floor, and the parent grows too tired to see which one is missing. And the second theory? Bouc asked, pale. The second, I said softly, is that every one of these passengers, or nearly everyone, had reason to kill Cassetti. They were all bound by the Armstrong case. They sat together in judgment, and last night they passed sentence. Dr. Constantine gasped. 12 wounds, 12 jurors. Exactly. I tapped the table. Each took a turn with the dagger. Each had their catharsis. The strong blow, the weak blow, the nervous blow, all accounted for. They turned this carriage into a courtroom. They turned the snowbound knight into a gallows. Bouc dropped into a chair, shaking his head. But Poirot, that would mean an entire train of murderers. Not an entire train, mon ami, only one coach. But yes, a conspiracy, an orchestra of vengeance, each playing their note. And poor Cassetti, he was the symphony's finale. The lamps flickered with the cold. I stared out into the snow where the wind howled like a restless soul. Inside, the little gray cells danced. 2 roads lay before me, one easy, one terrible. The easy road would save reputations, soothe consciences, keep the law satisfied. The terrible road, that would expose a truth so shocking, so unprecedented, it might shake the very meaning of justice. I smoothed my mustaches with deliberate care. The question now, mes amis, is not which road is possible. Both are possible. The question is, which one shall Hercule Poirot reveal? Chapter 8. The Net Tightens. When the snow traps a train, mon ami, it also traps the truth. There is nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. Lies, too, become prisoners, pacing like nervous animals in their cages. By the 8th day's light, I knew the time had come to press harder, to see which of my little caged beasts would roar, and which would whimper. I summoned them one by one again, this time not for polite questions, but for the kind of queries that strike beneath the ribs. First, Mary Debenham. She entered calm, her spine straight as always, her governess eyes steady. But I had already heard too many whispers of the Armstrongs. I leaned forward. "Mademoiselle," I said softly, "when I spoke the name Armstrong yesterday, your eyes closed for half a second. That is not the stillness of ignorance. That is the stillness of pain." Her lips parted, then pressed tight. "You imagine things, Monsieur Poirot?" "No," I said. "I observe things." "You were Daisy Armstrong's governess, were you not?" Her hands clenched together in her lap. She tried to keep the mask, but masks crack under weight. "Yes," she whispered at last. "I taught her letters. I tucked her to bed, and then she was taken. Do you understand what that does to a woman?" "I understand, mademoiselle. It turns discipline into armor, but sometimes armor is only guilt in another suit." She rose quickly, eyes flashing. "I did not kill him." "Perhaps not alone," I murmured. She left, her shoes clicking like gunshots on the floor. Next, Colonel Arbuthnot. He came stiff, chin high, mustache bristling. A soldier never likes to be questioned. But soldiers, too, bleed. "You were close to Miss Debenham," I said at once. "She is a lady," he snapped. "Yes, and she was governess to Daisy Armstrong." "A coincidence?" His jaw tightened. I served with Colonel Armstrong. A better man never breathed. His death was an abomination. If I had been there—" He cut himself off, fists clenched. I leaned in. "Perhaps you were here, mon Colonel. Perhaps last night you served him at last." His eyes blazed, but he said nothing. Silence sometimes is louder than confession. Then the Princess Dragomirov. She sat hunched, her jewels heavy as chains, her face like cracked marble. "Yes," she croaked, "I knew Sonia Armstrong. A woman of grace. To lose her child, such cruelty." Her old hands trembled. "I am too old to strike with a knife, Monsieur Poirot. But I tell you, if my body were young, my heart would have urged it." Her maid, Hildegard Schmidt, hovered nearby, eyes lowered. But when I turned suddenly and said, "You were the Armstrong family's cook, were you not?" her face went scarlet. She stammered, admitted it. Tears welled. "They were kind to me, monsieur. Kinder than anyone. When little Daisy—" She covered her face. Two more beads on the string, perfectly aligned. The Count and Countess Andreni. Together they entered, but I separated them. First the Count, tall, protective, answering for both. But when I asked for his wife's maiden name, he bristled. I insisted she answer herself. She faltered, whispering, "Helena Goldenberg, sister to Sonia Armstrong." Ah, the last veil fell. A blood relative, Daisy Armstrong's aunt. Her tears confirmed it. The Count put his arm around her, shielding. But shields are useless when truth pierces from within. Mrs. Hubbard stormed in next. Again the handbag, again the indignation. But this time I asked directly, "You are not Hubbard at all, are you? You are Linda Arden, the famous actress and mother of Sonia Armstrong." Her face lit with fury and sorrow all at once. Yes, I am. My baby's baby was murdered. Do you think I could sit idle? Do you think any mother could?" Her words rang through the carriage like a verdict. By evening my list was nearly full. The Swedish missionary, the Italian traveler, the valet, each one had some tie, however faint, to the Armstrong household. Friends, servants, allies, blood. What had seemed a train of strangers revealed itself as a secret family bound by grief. When the last of them departed, I sat alone, the lamp flickering, my notebook brimming. 12 wounds, 12 suspects, 12 bonds to a single dead child. The net had closed, mon ami. The Orient Express was not a prison. It was a jury box. And I, Hercule Poirot, was no longer hunting one killer. I was staring at 12. Chapter 9. The Grand Reveal. The dining car had been transformed into a courtroom. The long table gleamed, the lamps glowed softly, and the air itself seemed to wait for judgment. Outside, the snow pressed against the windows in white silence, a jury of ice. Inside, 12 passengers sat, stiff and silent, each with a face carved from fear, from pride, from sorrow. I stood at the head of the table, my notebook closed before me, my mustaches perfectly symmetrical. Monsieur Bouc and Dr. Constantine flanked me like magistrates, and I, Hercule Poirot, prepared to deliver not one verdict, but 2. "Mesdames et messieurs," I began, "you sit here, summoned not by the law of man, but by the law of circumstance. A man is dead, Ratchet, who was also Cassetti, a murderer, a kidnapper, a thief of children's lives, and yet, last night he himself was murdered. By whom? That is the question I let the silence stretch. Mrs. Hubbard's hands tightened on her handbag. Mary Debenham's gaze never wavered. The Countess stared at the tablecloth. There are two possible solutions, I said, raising one finger. The first is simple. It was an intruder. A man disguised in a conductor's uniform entered the compartment. He stabbed Cassetti repeatedly, planted clues to confuse us, the handkerchief, the pipe cleaner, the kimono. He escaped unseen into the night. A murmur rippled through the carriage. Relief flickered in some eyes. The easy solution? Yes, they longed for it. But alas, I continued, raising a second finger, this road is too smooth. The snow outside makes it impossible. No footprints, no path of escape. The locked doors, the sealed windows. No, mes amis, this is not the truth. It is a tale for children. I leaned forward, voice sharp now. The second solution is more terrible. Cassetti, the butcher of the Armstrong child, was struck down not by one hand, but by many. 12 wounds, delivered with rage, with hesitation, with love, with hate. Strong and weak, male and female, guilty and grieving, all together. A jury of 12, a jury of vengeance. The words fell like stones. Mrs. Hubbard gasped, then straightened, her eyes fierce. Mary Debenham's mask cracked, a tremor running through her lips. Arbuthnot's fists clenched on the table. The Count placed a protective hand on his wife's shoulder, while her eyes filled with silent tears. Princess Dragomirov lifted her chin, ancient and unrepentant. Yes, I said quietly. Each of you was connected to the Armstrong tragedy. A governess, a soldier, a nurse, a cook, a mother, a friend, a lover. Blood and bond, all gathered here. You lured Cassetti onto this train, into this snow-bound trap. You formed your jury, and you delivered your sentence. Each took the knife, each struck a blow. Thus was justice done, not by the law, but by 12 hearts that could not forget. Dr. Constantine stared, pale. Bouc shook his head, horrified. Poirot? He whispered, You cannot be serious. An entire coach of murderers? It is too monstrous. Non, mon ami, I replied softly. It is not monstrous. It is symmetrical. 12 wounds, 12 passengers, 12 jurors, perfect order, perfect balance. I turned back to the assembly. You wished to deceive me, to drown me in clues. But in your eagerness, you created too much pattern. And where there is pattern, there is Poirot. The little gray cells, they see silence. Only the hiss of the heaters, the faint whistle of wind through snow. Then Mrs. Hubbard, no, Linda Arden, the actress, the grieving grandmother, spoke, her voice strong. Yes, we did it, each one of us. He deserved no less gasps, whispers, tears. The facade crumbled. They did not deny it. They could not. I closed my notebook. There, mes amis, are the two solutions, the simple lie or the terrible truth. Which one shall I deliver to the authorities when the snow releases us? That is not for me to decide alone. Justice, after all, has many faces. I smoothed my mustaches, the symmetry restored. But remember this, whether it was 1 hand or 12, Cassetti is dead, and for the Armstrong child, perhaps, there is peace. Chapter 10. The Curtain Falls. The dining car had emptied. One by one the passengers drifted back to their compartments, leaving behind silence and the faint smell of coffee. Only Monsieur Bouc, doctor, Constantine and I remained, 3 men sitting among echoes. Outside, the snow still pressed the Orient Express into its icy cradle, but inside, the greater weight was truth itself. Bouc was the first to break. He slammed his hand on the table. Mon Dieu, Poirot, I cannot accept it. 12 guilty hands, 12 knives. It is barbaric. It is impossible. I raised my eyebrows. Impossible? You saw their faces, mon ami. You heard their silence. They confessed not with words, but with tears, with tremors, with the steel in their eyes. They did it, all of them. And for once, I cannot say I disapprove, Dr. Constantine adjusted his spectacles nervously. But justice, monsieur, justice belongs to the law, not to private vengeance. Ah, but what is law? I asked softly. A code written by men. And what is justice? Something older, something fiercer. Last night, the law was snowbound, but justice walked freely through the corridors of this train. They both stared at me, appalled. Bouc shook his head, muttering about scandal, about ruin for the company. Constantine wrung his hands. And what shall we do, Monsieur Poirot? What shall we tell the police when they dig us out of this snow? I leaned back, folding my arms, my mustaches twitching in perfect order. We shall give them a choice, I said. Solution 1. An intruder in disguise slipped aboard, killed Cassetti, and vanished. Simple, clean, believable. Or Solution 2. 12 passengers took the law into their own hands, and justice was written with blood. The police may choose which story they prefer. I, Hercule Poirot, will not stand in their way. Bouc stared at me. You mean you would let them go? I smiled faintly. Cassetti kidnapped a child. He murdered her. He destroyed an entire family. He evaded the gallows with wealth and influence. But he did not escape the memory of those he wronged. That memory followed him onto this train, and here, in this snow-bound tomb, he met his punishment. If the law failed once, perhaps the heart had the right to succeed. For a long while, none of us spoke. The wind rattled faintly at the window like a hand trying to get in. At last, Bouc sighed. Then it is settled. We will tell the police the first story, the stranger in uniform. It is neater. The world prefers neatness. Precisely, mon ami, I said. The world craves order. And so order I shall give it later. I returned to my compartment. The train groaned in the night, shifting slightly as if impatient for the snow to release it. I placed my notebook carefully in my suitcase, aligning it at right angles with the edges. I sat down, smoothing my mustaches once more. Through the thin walls I could hear faint murmurs. Mrs. Hubbard's voice, softer, now not theatrical, but maternal. The Countess whispering to her husband, Mary Debenham's calm tones breaking at last into a quiet sob. They were no longer 12 strangers. They were 12 fragments of a single wound, stitched together by grief, bound forever by what they had done. I closed my eyes. In another world, perhaps, I would have handed them to the police. In another world, perhaps, justice would be simple. But in this world, in this carriage, in this snow, justice had already been served. And who was I, Hercule Poirot, to undo what fate had so carefully arranged? Morning came at last. The storm broke. The tracks were cleared. The train began to move again with a great sigh of relief. Passengers bustled. Baggage shifted. The wheels sang their steady rhythm once more. To the world, nothing had changed. A train delayed, a passenger dead, an investigation tidied. But I knew, and they knew, that beneath the neat facade lay something far more complex, a justice both terrible and perfect. As we crossed into the pale light of a new day, I adjusted my cuffs and whispered to myself, "Order has been restored." And with that, the curtain fell.